HorrorDeconstruction.
What's up, everybody? It's the HorrorDeconstruction. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, or most likely on YouTube. Give us a like, share, and subscribe. Hit that thumbs up. Hit that subscribe. Today's a solo deconstruction with your host, Komp. And today's film is The Empty Man, 2020. On the trail of a missing girl, an ex-cop comes across a secretive group attempting to summon a terrifying supernatural entity. Directed and written by David Pryor. Based on the comic book series written by Cullen Bunn. Starring James Badge Dale, Marin Ireland, Sasha Frolova, Samantha Logan, Evan Jonkaget, I should have quit before I got to these names, and Virginia Cullen, a whole bunch of other people. So, The Empty Man. This is a film that came out during the height of whatever America's going through right now. Unfortunately, it was supposed to come out way earlier earlier of last year. It came out in October. Many things went against this film's release. Obviously, the big plague that happened, and also Disney acquiring Fox Studios and kind of dumping all of their films into the toilet. I think the trailer for this film released 5 days before the movie actually came out, so that shows a symbolism of either Disney just not giving a shit or Disney not believing in the material. I will say that, though, this particular project had a great potential to it that sort of undoes itself within the last 20 minutes of its runtime. So, to get into the idea of what The Empty Man is about, based on this, is obviously a big conspiracy supernatural thriller, as opposed to the comic, which comes from Boom Studios. The opening credits of this film have the Boom Studios intro, much like the Marvel or DC films. I guess they were maybe trying to do some cinematic universe themselves, not necessarily interconnected stories, because this is the only one that I know of so far from Boom Studios. But the comic book itself, I took a look at some of the issues, and it's a completely different animal. And the premise of the comic book, it seems to go more towards Stephen King's novel The Cell, stuff like that, or Cell, and people going crazy and these two FBI agents trying to solve this problem, whereas opposed it's just a singular cop in this film. Now, I'm not going to go into heavy spoilers with this film, because I think it is a film, while at the end becomes flawed, I think it's actually its strengths are much more worth seeing on the screen, because this is a film that you can see had some care for it. Because the film actually starts out with a sort of a prologue. We don't know it's a prologue. I had no idea what the film was about going into it. I just knew that a lot of people on many message boards were saying that this was a really underrated film, and it has some world building to it, which is true to a point. And I think another big thing why this film probably did not have many people see it is because I think people might have mistaken it for this other film called The Bye-Bye Man, which people say is one of the worst horror movies that has ever come out. And, The Empty Man, The Bye-Bye Man, The Hollow Man, which I accidentally typed in when I was looking for the IMDb for this. So they should have just went with a different title. And even for the fact that just from the plotting alone from the comic compared to the film, they should have just called it The Emptiness or something else, because there's so much difference between the plot line. I guess it's similar to a point, but just by changing the main characters alone, they completely changed it. And I was actually interested in seeing it more because I had seen the director's previous short film. He made a movie called AM 1200, or I guess AM 1200. It's one of the, I guess it's supposed to be 12 AM, but it's backwards. And that's like a Lovecraftian short film. It's got this great look to it. And this guy does a lot of documentaries, behind the scenes films, and I think he's worked on a couple of Fincher projects. So the film has a Fincher-esque look to it. Like, the film looks like a movie. Like, that's weird to say that, but a lot of films nowadays, they have this shot for TV look to them, and that's because a lot of films are streaming nowadays, so they don't have this sort of grand look to it. They sort of look like sitcoms for some reason, or TV shows, the really expensive TV shows, when a lot of feature films tend to have a lot more wides. They let you settle on shots more. This is that type of film. It has a lot of great looks to it. And anyway, the first 20 minutes of the film is this fantastic film for itself, and this is why it's probably the best aspect of the film, because since the director did such a great job with AM 12 o'clock, he knows how to work with 20 minutes of film. And I always think it's great. I always think a short film should be the first 10 minutes of a feature film, and you could just kind of follow the story from there. It should leave you with enough questions to want to see the story go through, and that's what I feel this film does. It feels like the first 20 minutes are a film within its own settings. Starts around Bhutan, Asiatic country. There's these four wilderness climbers. They're actually going in the snow, and they're climbing these mountains, and they're going through these treacherous areas through this spooky ass bridge that you can kind of see through the bottom. It's all chained up. I cannot do stuff like that. I am freaky with heights, and that right there is scary. So these four climbers are they're getting snowed out essentially, and before that even happens, one of them falls. He's hearing this weird noise, right? And only he can hear it. Nobody, the rest of his crew can't hear. His girlfriend and his best friend and his girlfriend don't hear this. He does, and he ends up falling through a crevice, and the other guy comes down to save him, and he finds him in a pose, sort of like I can't say it's a meditative pose, but he's sitting in front of this it looks like the corpse of a creature that has like 6 fingers on each hand and stuff like that, and it's in this weird pose. And from there, it just gets a little bit stranger and stranger, and there's actually unsettling stuff in daytime, and it sets up a really interesting paranormal mystery. And I think that paranormal mystery, because it's closed off. The first 20 minutes are closed off for the rest of the film, so we don't think there's really any. It takes place in 1995, when the rest of the film takes place in 2018, 3 days in 2018. And I was sort of wondering why when the movie began, it says day 1, day 2, day 3, and I'm like, because I didn't know this was the first 20 minutes or a completely different story that connects to the film. And I thought, is this going to be, is this going to continue? Like, it's going to be like day 25 or something like that, but it doesn't do that. It just repeats the 3-day cycle after that. And when it jumps into 2018. But I gotta say, those first 20 minutes are so promising and so good that it hooks you in for the rest of the film. And the director, David Pryor, did such a great job. It's a great group of actors in the beginning of the film that I thought they would play out in the rest of the film. But we have a completely new cast in the rest of the film, led by James Badge Dale. He's playing James Lasombra, who has a bit of his own mysterious story, and I'm glad they spelled it out towards the end. But he is this cop, and he's an ex-cop, and he works at a hunting place, sort of like where you can get deer hunting rifles and all types of survival gear. He's selling a mace to this woman. He's not like a mace with a chain and ball, but like mace, like spray mace. And he's a somber guy. He's by himself. We're led to believe that there was some sort of crash or something that happened to his wife and his son, and that's why he's so lonesome, and he looks so, he just looks completely devoid of any personality or any help. James Badge Dale he's a very good actor in this, and he's one of those actors where you've seen him in many things, but you just don't know where. He sort of looks like somebody else. He's one of those actors, but he really nails this loner persona character. And he's not annoying where he's just sort of like he's too cool for the room. It's not played like that. He plays it absolutely realistic. And I can't say enough good things about his acting in this film, and also the writing for his character is pretty spot on, and I think realistic on how people would react in this situation where you become flummoxed, where these supernatural elements tie into you personally, and you'd be like, what's going on? Like, I can't believe this is a joke or something. And there's a part where he's accosted by 40 people trying to chase him, and he was like, nah, he just kind of runs off, and you're like, it's funny, but it's like, that's exactly what would probably happen, because like, this guy realizes his mortality and the stakes of this. He doesn't know what's going on realistically, because there are sort of clear elements that are borrowed from any sort of slasher film. This is where I think the weakness comes in from a little bit of the storyline, because it does follow a lot of your horror tropes like crazy. Like obviously any movie like The Ring, like if you watch the videotape in The Ring, you're gonna get killed in I guess 3 days or 7 days, what it was. The American version was 7 days. In the Japanese one, I think it's 2 days or something like that. But this one, it seems even lazier. It's like you got to find a bottle. If you find a bottle and you blow into it, then you can think about the empty man, and he comes and gets you after 3 days. So it's almost like, okay, let's just find something anybody can do and scare themselves. It's like saying Candyman in front of a mirror or something like that, which is, it's kind of lazy. And you do feel for a minute it's going to be some sort of high school slasher thing, but that's sort of taken care of within 10 minutes in the film. But obviously La Sombra does the ritual himself in the film, so we're led on this ticking clock sort of film storyline where eventually he will run into the empty man, and you know where he and you feel that tension. Like it doesn't feel cheap, it doesn't feel tacked on. You know, that's the whole point of the film. You know that this guy is partially doomed by what he's doing, but is he really? And I think that for the most part the film works in that sense, because there's also Marin Ireland, who plays Nora Quayle. She's the mother of this girl who goes missing, who has become the MacGuffin. Her daughter Amanda Quayle. So Marin Ireland is very good and she's also very realistic as this mother whose husband has passed away. Her husband is played by this actor that, well, you don't even see him in the film. Like, it's very strange because he's in a photograph. He's just like a photograph. He's like a guy who passed away 2 years prior, and there's like a photo of him, but it's an actor from like a popular, either from like a Disney Channel show or a Nickelodeon show. He's like one of the funny teachers on one of the shows. And I'm just like, is that all that guy, like, he just made money by being in a photograph? I was like, well, shit, that's awesome. Anyway, so he doesn't factor into the film really until like later on. You don't actually see him as an actor. You just saw him in a photograph 1 or 2 times. So that's why I thought it was a little weird to just see that an actor that I've seen before just as a photo. But anyway, the daughter Amanda is the only one who's a little bit. The writing for her is a little bit, or just the performance of her. She's not terrible, but she is this. I don't know how to explain her character. She shows up at La Sombra's after he has this sort of pathetic one-man birthday at a restaurant where people, sing happy birthday to him, and he's super embarrassed. Another realistic reaction for a movie character. She shows up to his house and she starts talking. I guess it's appropriate for a character, but she's talking in these weird hippy-dippy type of dialogue, and it's a little bit too over the top for her character. Although I guess it fits her character, but it's still, for the film, it's a little over the top. She feels like the most unrealistic part of the movie. And what we find out later on, there's this group called I forgot the name of the group. I was gonna say Pentatonics, but that's a singing group. But anyway, there's this Scientology-esque, or just an unknown sort of occultish, association or group of people that are somehow works in tandem with the empty man ideology or something like that. So anyway, she vanishes. There's a blood sign on her mirror that says "The empty man made me do it." And so then there are a whole bunch of elements that feels like some supernatural horror film. It feels like an occult film, which they tend to go together pretty easily. There's it's like a murder mystery, but it's a mystery for sure of trying to figure something out because we don't know anything, and we're following via James La Sombra's detective work. And people are getting picked out or picked off. Excuse me. There's really it's very unsettling film, as in that it doesn't feel right. Like nothing here feels real. Nothing here feels like it should be, and that does play in towards the end of the film very well. I'm not going to spoil the film, but that makes sense later on at the end at how heightened everything feels. There's a really cool cameo by Stephen Root, and he plays, I guess, one of a higher minister of this group, this religious cultish place that's not really like a religion, but more like a way of life, sort of these New Age Hare Krishnas, but more with a negative spin on them. And Stephen Root is always great in everything, and he plays it. He's only in the film for maybe 5 minutes, and he's fucking good in his scene. all the other characters are these, I guess they're like 18 or 19-year-old kids that go to college with Amanda, and then he's trying to interview some of them. He's interviewing this one particular woman. I think she's played by, yeah, Samantha Logan. She's playing Devara. And I mean, they have this sort of CW level of acting to them. Not horrible, but kind of expecting this type of acting from them. If you've ever seen a CW show, then you know what I'm talking about, like Vampire Diaries, or I've never seen these shows, but Vampire Diaries, or even Gossip Girl or something like that. So that's about, and she does, I think, star on one of those type of shows. So it kind of, you know, it follows through that type of acting. I was not expecting her to have nudity in this film. I didn't expect any nudity in this film, and there's like a nudity scene in the movie, and that's the character I thought I would want to see naked. And you know what? Thanks, David Pryor, but no, respect people. Don't. That's a joke what I just did. So that was a little jarring to have nudity in this film. It just seems like the company said, hey, make this girl naked in a sauna for no reason, and then just have her, you know, in a situation there, and you're like, okay, fine, I'm not going to complain, but it seemed out of left field, but whatever. I guess that was just to give it an R rating, because it's not a graphically gory film. There are corpses in this film, but the corpses are not specifically grotesque, as in the manner of them being killed. One person is graphically killed, and that's probably why it gets an R rating. But other than that, it's not really maybe subject matter. I'm not sure. But the deaths are pretty jarring and unsettling, and the scares are they feel like in a realistic kind of scary sense. This feels like one of those creepy stories you find on, you know, websites or you see on YouTube and stuff like that. So I like that type of unknown. Every one of those creepy storylines that you hear online and stuff like that, they all grab from Lovecraft, even if they don't, you know, aren't space monsters, or it's just like a, you know, strange creatures and stuff like that. That's all Lovecraft influenced stuff like that. And Lovecraft was kind of a dickhead with his fear of anybody who wasn't white. That's what scared him the most. But certainly this is a film that sort of level also. It's just this otherworldly extraterrestrial bring. So, and there's also, you know, talks of tulpas. And if you've ever watched, or where they explained it a little bit more in the third season of Twin Peaks, there's a lot of tulpa talk in this, and they give you enough information for the audience to gather things together. You know, they treat their audience as smart until probably like the last 15 minutes, and that's when they're like, okay, this is for the really stupid people, so you don't feel like you've wasted your time. Although, in a sense, the last 10 minutes of the film, it feels like they have painted themselves into a corner, had no idea what to do to make the finale of the film work. Like, the finale of the film is what the finale of the film is, and I would like to compare it to another film that has recently come out, but I can't, because then that would completely spoil the ending of this movie. So I think that it is 3/4 a great film and 1/4 okay film. Unfortunately, the ending is the okay part. So it's just like, okay, all right, I get it. You know, it's sort of like, we tricked you sort of film. Or, you know, this is not the ending you expected type of movie, or maybe it is, I'm not sure. I unfortunately Googled one of the characters. I don't know why I did this, but I Googled it just to find out a little bit from the comic book, you know? I didn't necessarily want spoilers. I just wanted to see if this character, I don't think actually exists in the comic book version of the series of the Empty Man. But one of the Google questions had a gigantic spoiler in it, just by me reading it, and I was like, oh, okay, well, shit. So I watched the rest of the film with this, not knowing if it was a spoiler or not, and then it ended up being, yeah, okay, that's a spoiler. So be very wary. I went in without knowing what it was, and I don't know if me finding out that spoiler lessened the sort of like, oh, because I think if I had seen this without knowing that, I would have been like, oh. But when I saw it, I was like, ah. So it's, instead of a dramatic, it went to more of like, So I think what they did by changing dramatically the storyline from the comic book to the film, they just took an essence of something, but I don't think if it was even that close of an essence to what they originally had in the first place. So I'm trying to figure out what did we lose in translation from the comic to the film. I did read a bit of a review about the comic and the film, and they said that both are great on their own. So I'll take that writer's word as their truth, and I hope that I'm glad that they enjoyed the film. I enjoyed the film. I think it's worth watching regardless of how it kind of putters out towards the end. It had a great potential. I still think that it's 85% a great film. Just the way in mood and acting and everything involved with it is just so well done, and the tension and the way that it just is this creepy, unstoppable, unsettled notion of dread is so fucking good that I think it's worth watching alone. But I think that the ending itself is a big divider for some people. It's going to be one of those ones that you either were like, oh, no, I wasn't expecting it, or either you're going to feel like it has completely insulted your intelligence and looked for an easy way out. So I will still give it a great recommendation for people to see it and kind of make their own opinions. I'm thinking the ending is going to be make or break for the film in its entirety for you. I think that the film itself is very watchable, and it's just that ending might not work for some people, and so it might be a middling review. So I will give it a 6 out of 10, not expecting nudity in this type of classy horror film, but getting it anyway, and you know what? That's alright with me. And with that, this has been the Horror Deconstruction.
The HorrorDeconstruction.